Welcome to Startup Health TV, where we celebrate the entrepreneurs and innovators who are transforming health. I'm Logan Plaster. I'm here with my friend Fox Holt with Vigilant. Fox, thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Logan. Great to be here.
All right. Okay, let's talk about what you've built with Vigilant. I know you're helping nurses, you're helping hospitals, you're decreasing burnout, you're doing a lot of great stuff, but what is the product?
Well, we have initially a product safety and compliance platform where we're digitizing drug delivery.
Okay.
So we're automating the safety steps associated with drugs that hospital clinicians prepare and give.
Now, I'm no expert in hospital medications and how they're tracked. Why was this necessary?
Well, example is an ICU nurse, right? When they hang in an infusion, they have to create 3 labels for an IV tube.
Okay.
Currently, we have about 30% of the time they're hanging 1. COVID hit, a lot of these kind of processes went out the window, baby boomers left. It's just not a process for 2023. And it takes a lot of time, and it's just something that they don't get to. And when they don't label these things, bad things happen.
Okay.
For instance,
Like what?
there was something in the news about a patient who accidentally had a nurse start a fentanyl pump instead of a lactated ringer's pump. He OD'd. He
Wow.
died. Relatively straightforward procedure.
Yeah.
And so it's mission critical that these things are done, and we've got to automate it for them. This is something that is tremendously easy to automate. There's no PHI data. It's low-hanging fruit from an automation perspective, and it provides significant impacts.
How big is the problem in terms of that risk profile? You talked about that one case, but
Yeah.
how big of a problem is it nationally?
It's every area of a hospital, right? So we have modules for ORs, EDs, PACUs, oncology units. In every one of these areas, there are medications that nurses or clinicians, doctors are having to prepare. And right now, the standard of care is handwriting on syringes, or it's just terrible.
Like writing on the side of a syringe.
Yes, and it's impossible to do. Have
sounds
you ever tried to,
impossible. No,
it's
sounds
impossible. So they don't do it.
Okay. And if they do, I'm sure that comes with its own host of sort of human error potential.
Exactly.
How'd you get into this?
Well, I started my career in the printing industry, but, in the last couple years of my grandmother's life, she had a bad medication event, right? So a nurse accidentally gave the wrong medication. And it was amazingly frustrating, and it was complicated, and, the anger that it goes with that. And I really wanted to do something to help it. And I had a colleague from my old Lexmark days, printing industry, who helped found this company, and I saw it, and I saw how easy it was to implement, and I wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah. We've talked about how reducing errors in these medication tracking could save lives if you make a mistake with a medication. What are some of the other downstream benefits of digitizing the whole process and delivering that data to the hospital?
Great question. So anytime you automate a process, you digitize, you have a lot of data, right? So we can now create compliance reports. And so a CNO can say, okay, the travel nurses from this group are not doing the procedures, right? So let's focus on these guys, or let's make sure that they're doing the right thing quick, or we got to work with a different agency.
Yeah.
Or we can add it to predictive analytics data. The more data you're able to put these algorithms, the better it is.
Yeah.
And so it's a whole new data set. For instance, CLABSIs, hospital-acquired conditions.
Yeah.
Being able to understand what is going on, and making sure that we're able to predict what's going to happen.
Where are you at in the product rollout?
So we have we have a Vigilant Verify platform, which is the automation tools. We have products actually sold to 18 of the top 40 health systems, and then more. And our next step is really to use those evangelist customers to spread throughout the rest of the system.
Okay. So they become your evangelists. I was going to ask, what kind of responses are you getting from nurses on the front lines?
So Northwestern just published a poster, did a study where they saw a 75% increase in nurse satisfaction around delivering drugs. 75% increase in nurse satisfaction.
Because of Vigilant, or because of this concept generally?
Because of Vigilant's products.
Really?
Additionally, we're seeing 4,000 hours of nurse time saved in a unit per year.
Break down why a nurse's life would be better under this paradigm versus it being sort of another thing they have to go do, print out a ticket, why is it really improving life?
Well, because when a nurse comes onto a new shift and she's got a patient with 12 lines going through, she spends time line tracing, figure out where it's going in where. Because if a patient starts crashing out, needs some Levophed, it takes a lot of time to find the carrier fluid. I mean, you've got to pick the right line in order to inject that drug, and it takes time. And so there's a lot of time spent trying to understand what's going on. And when a patient is going from one unit to the next, like let's say they're going from the ICU back to the OR, well, the OR team has got to figure out what's going on, and then go back to the PACU, and it just hits that unit every time it comes through.
What have the conversations been like with hospital systems? Do you feel like they understand the short-term and downstream benefits of this kind of tracking?
I think initially they see the initial impacts. The data perspective they don't get as right away, but they have such problems with the burnout, the shortage.
It's huge.
So anything they can do to make their nurses happier, more efficient, while increasing patient safety, I mean, it's the trifecta. And it's so easy to implement, right? Because our initial solution doesn't need IT to work with. That's where a lot of the delays occur. Additionally, we price the product below capital budget, so we don't have to wait a full year.
Oh, smart.
So we have like a 45-day sales cycle to hospitals, right? Now that's unheard of.
Okay. You're selling directly into a department then?
Exactly.
Okay. At an easy price point.
Easy price point, makes significant impact. But then we've got we have a different model for systems. Of course, we have to be very flexible, and we can finance things, do it on a rent monthly basis, whatever it is. Very flexible.
You mentioned burnout and just making the life of a nurse better, but then I think about there's a flip side where you're saving them from a really scary potential never event. The idea that a nurse could make this kind of mistake and lose their livelihood potentially.
That's right.
That's a lot bigger than making my shift a little more efficient. There's this bigger upside. It's really intense.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, we do a lot of focus on the nurse benefits and the time saved because those never events don't happen during trials, and we need to get the ROI and sell it. However, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's the never events. It's having really informative labels. Like, for instance, on all our labels, we put a little tips, tricks, what to avoid.
Okay.
Like, this increases blood pressure, or a patient must be ventilated.
So there's an education piece.
Oh yeah,
baked
absolutely.
in.
Right at the point of care, right when you need
Interesting.
it. And so it helps them save from a lot of errors.
How do you keep all of that up to date?
Well, these are, infusions and anesthesia drugs. A lot of these drugs, it doesn't change too much, right? But when we do strive to put the printers on the network after they're in, so that we can manage them and be able to change them easily.
Okay, so you're making waves. You've got traction. You're working with how many hospitals?
We're now in 40 healthcare institutions.
Fantastic. Okay, so what does the rest of 2023 look like then?
Just driving, right?
Sales?
Product awareness, things like this to help the industry know. I want every single CNO to know about this because they have teams, cross-functional teams, working right now. What can they do about the burnout? I want Vigilant to be one of those tactics. I want them on the board of something they can do quickly, easily, in order to start making impact.
Fantastic. Fox, I appreciate you sharing with me. It's so exciting to see how something seemingly simple, labeling your drugs correctly, automating, digitizing medications can have instant positive impacts for a nurse on the floor, and yet have these downstream positive impacts for the hospital and for the entire workforce. So excited to see what you do next.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thanks, Fox.